tuning in from all around the globe on the interweb. So there we go. I'm Dean Parkin, and I have to say, I wouldn't be the poetry person that I am without Naomi and Michael. I blame them for everything. Now, they were the power duo behind the Oldborough Poetry Festival, which I first attended as a punter in 1996, but liked it so much, I joined the band. I loved the poets they brought to Suffolk and presented, and the way they presented them. They were the Lennon and McCartney of poetry introductions. They loved the poets and always chose the right words to say about them, and always knew when to say enough. Have I said enough yet? Yes. So when it was my turn to do the introductions, I did it with trepidation. I always tried to get out of it, which sort of made me the Ringo Starr of poetry introductions, or maybe the Pete Best, the guy who Ringo replaced. So tonight we're celebrating two brilliant books. Naomi Jaffa's long-awaited first collection, Flying Change, has only been 30 years in the making. Yeah. For those who know Naomi, you'd expect her poems to be forthright, honest, and unequivocal, and they certainly don't mess about. Some would say her poems are even sagacious. Now, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying that her nickname at Francis Holland School was Naomi Sagacity Jaffa. Yeah. And certainly her sagaciousness, if I can say that word, shine through much of her work. Now, when you start as a writer, they tell you, write about what you know, which is harder than you think. There's a real art to it. And Naomi does that and more. She writes about being a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a horsewoman, a partner, and friend. The poems dig deep and say exactly what needs to be said with elegance and verve. Now, Michael Laskey is in it for the long haul. Poet, editor, workshop leader, stable lad, he told me just now. Publisher, everything he does, he seems to do forever. Just goes on and on. You can't stop him. He's like a little terrier, a little poetry terrier. Once he's got something, you can't get away from him. And he loves dogs as well, so I love that analogy of him being a poetry terrier. Over Poetry Festival, director from 89 to 99, but still wouldn't leave. We couldn't get rid of him. He still kept turning up, and he was doing introductions and workshops. And Smith's Knoll, 1991 to 2012, 50 issues. Yeah, amazing. And even our Cut Loose monthly writing workshop has been going on for a decade. Now, you should imagine, he should get a medal for that. And actually, recently, he did get one. But the good thing is, he didn't get it for all those ragbag of things. No, he got the King's Gold Medal for Poetry for his poems, for his collected poems, in fact, yeah. Which is as it should be. Michael writes one word at a time. That sounds strange, but he waits for the next word to come, the best word, and proceeds to create his lean, powerful poems about the everyday. So it'll be a treat to hear these poets and their best words in the best order tonight. They'll be reading for a generous 15 minutes, each in the first half, Naomi first and Michael second. Then we'll have a break, and as this is a launch, Michael, fresh from his gold medal for poetry, whose Garlic Press has published Naomi's book, is generously standing the entire audience a drink at the interval. Yes. Bad luck to those on the live stream. They'll just have to go and make a cup of tea. And at interval, you can purchase copies of the two books, which they'll be happy to sign afterwards. And then in the second half, they'll read for 10 minutes each, with Michael going first and Naomi second. But now, please welcome Naomi Sagacity Jaffa.
What a load of codswallop. It's his nickname. It was not from school. Oh, my word. I'm kind of incredulous, really. I mean, this beautiful thing, how is it my book? It's crazy. Anyway, I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you so much for coming along from my first poem title, Round Here. Green tractors in yards, trundling across fields, trailing muck down the road ahead. Broken, faint white lines at side lane junctions. Village halls doubling as part-time post offices, creches, farmers' markets, pop-up pubs, drop-off centres for donations. Barns with red tin roofs. Barns with exposed timbers and collapsing roofs. Barns turned into houses, still trying to look like barns. Barns turned into houses you'd never know had been barns. The four-way crossroad sign to villages in the Saints shifted a quarter turn, a truck reversing, and forever on the wonk. So yes, I'm also thrilled that I know a lot of people across the world are watching this, which is ridiculous too, but I'm so grateful for friends in Australia and New Zealand and America and Greece and all over the UK. It's lovely. So when April starts, we very much keep a lookout for the arrival of, well, my and I'm sure many of your favourite birds of summer. Today I am a swallow. This is my first summer from the nest on the barn rafter above that big, peaceful beast, and I have no way of knowing how long I can keep flying to where I'm supposed to go for the winter. For heaven's sake, I'm still learning about swooping down for water, how to zigzag just ahead of the front legs of the great grey beast, moving fast across dune grass, hooves stirring up lots of the little black things that taste so good. Yeah, they do nest right above my horse's stable, and her rugs are very decorated, shall we say. But I forgive them completely because they're so lovely. So I've put a little note against the side of the poems that I'm going to read to try and remind myself what coherent thing I might have to say about them. Hopefully my poems are not difficult to understand, so they don't need glossing. But basically this poem, I'm rubbish at meditation, is what I wrote. But I find working on my horse, doing things with my horse, the most kind of active therapy I know for just focusing and stopping that, living in the past, you're depressed, living in the future, you're anxious, all that rubbish. So anyway, this is called mindfulness practice. When the incessant fizz of past and future refuses to shut the fuck up, I seek out my flea-bitten grey mare and her rigorous attention only to this moment, then this one. I dump my claptrap on the muck heap along with a barrowload of her fresh shit and set to work. Dean did say I was forthright. In the stable, I ask her to move over, run my left hand down each fore and hind leg lightly to grass below the fetlock, lift and hold each foot in turn, use hoofpick to dig out the packed-in dirt, always heel to toe, careful to avoid the central sensitive triangle of the frog. I clean her coat from poll to rump in firm, even, sweeping strokes of the body brush, with currycomb punctuation, hissing quietly through my teeth the way those old-fashioned grooms were said to do to keep from swallowing dust and grease. She stands still throughout, even for her tummy, which so many horses find intolerably ticklish. I detangle and brush out her nearly white tail, and we finish with her head, eyes half closed, ears drooped, great long face lowered to the rub of the bulb of my hand against the bone of her cheek, right where it itches most. So, yeah. Well, this book is called Flying Change, and there are quite a few birds in it, and the cover picture is particularly close to my heart. It's a little oil painting of the most alive dead sparrow you'll ever see, and I just felt that also because I'm a horsewoman and there are people here and probably online who know what a flying change is, there was that little extra use for the expression. So, yeah. But I think this is probably the last horse poem for those of you who are not remotely interested in horses. But I hope that you'll get that this is a manoeuvre that's quite sophisticated and is quite hard to do without the horse getting a bit jazzed up or without me getting unbalanced or all that stuff. And so I wanted to celebrate this. Flying change. Oh, and the most important thing I must say, and I can't because I haven't seen everyone and now you're pretty much in darkness, but somewhere in the audience is Robbie Steer, who is House of Burt, who has done the most stunningly beautiful job of designing this cover and book, and I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you. Flying change. While I'd rather offend than bore with any story involving my grey mare, I feel impelled to share these few seconds from the day before yesterday when, beautifully straight, collected and powerful, she cantered down the centre line, and I thought, more than actually asked for, a flying change at X, and got it. And nothing else changed. No rushiness, no loss of balance or rhythm. The softness maintained right through until, together, 3 strides later, on the new lead, we quietly broke to a joyful free walk on a loose rein. If I never feel it again, I'm glad I felt it once. It's quite rare. So I'm going to read a kind of group of poems that are about my parents and about my family. And I would say breaking to a joyful free walk on a loose rein. My father was so much not loose about anything. He was one of the most particular men and very, very insistent on what was the right way to do things. Filleting a Dover sole. Never would my father allow any waiter to do the honours, and I thank him for his precision, for the satisfaction of lifting 2 clean fillets from the skinned top side, turning the whole sole over to slide the other pair clear, leaving a perfect skeleton to decorate the white plate. And, well, quite a number of years before I learned how to do that, my parents met. And it was a kind of story in the family, and I just appropriated it for this poem. Milton Glee Club Concert, Portsmouth, 1956. There should have been a photograph of when he stuck his head around her dressing room door backstage. He, already seeing she was beautiful, hoped more than anything she could really sing. She, somewhat on her high cultural horse, unprepared to fall instantly for the country's popular violinist. Yes, I wish there was a photograph of the split second their eyes met and stars aligned, our future all mapped out. So I grew up, and my mother died in the house that we had as a family home in London, in St John's Wood, for 55 years, I think it was. And round the corner from our house was my grandparents' house, where my mother was actually born. Her big boast was that she was born on the first day of the general strike and she had to be at home because the hospitals weren't working. So Sunday lunch was a thing that we did most weekends. And I was always, well, I think you can tell what I was uneasy about in the poem. Sunday lunch. As eldest grandchild, I got to sit bottom right, next to Popper, at the head, and with the twitchy responsibility for the cream Bakelite button-push bell wired and fastened to the corner leg of the long, dark oak table which easily seated 12. My job, to ring for Violet once everyone had finished, set their knives and forks together down the middle. Most weeks, I got to press the button twice, 3 times if 3 courses. I learned how long to hold it in so as to ring clearly in the gloom of the narrow pantry. Too short, and it was a bark, or might go unheard above kitchen clatter. Too long, an impatient complaint to come sooner, quicker. I tried to send out a neutral signal for the next task, that we were ready and waiting, but in no hurry. And this poem follows on. I mean, if that was a sort of going back in time, this is a much more recent, dawning realization. Spoon, well, not that recent actually. Spoon. Can't help being born with a silver one rammed down my throat. Initials and birth date engraved on the finial of its sterling handle. And so hard to extract, given all those opinions, spoon-fed as facts. And it rhymes. That's not like me. Okay. So the book is kind of about 60% unpublished newer poems and the rest from my first 2 pamphlets. And this was one of the poems that made the cut. And it's a poem I was really thrilled to have been given to write. My father died in 1991 and he disappeared, and I didn't do lots of dreams, but this one was a real gift. I think I need a drink of water. It's very quiet in here. Exactly. I'll stop rabbiting on soon. This is the visitor. As far as I know, he never even liked it here. But quite suddenly, after staying away almost 9 years, my father is back to visit me in Kerala, South India. In the middle of the night, as you'd expect, but also during the afternoons around tea time, riding the same air horn blasting hot and dusty trains. And he seems to like to call, especially before breakfast, during that last hour of sleep in hotel bedrooms. He looks about 60, but to be truthful, to date him accurately, I'd have to compare him with the photos. Definitely he's much happier. Just the other morning he arrived, shorter than me as usual, and swept me off my feet, lifted me right off the ground and hugged me for no reason. Put me down, I'm much too heavy, put me down, you'll break. But he didn't, and he doesn't, and my toes never touched our old gold top floor landing carpet. He fills out his trousers again, and his cheeks are back to normal, fat, tanned, glistening and clean-shaven. I kiss him, inhale that mix of Gillette foam and Floris's rose geranium. And all the time, he dizzies me with smiles. So, that's my dad dead. And my mother, because one has to be balanced about these things, Well, it's sort of inevitable, I suppose, but my mother died after in the same year as my last pamphlet was published, Driver, and so I didn't get to write any grief poems about my mother for my last collection, so I thought, well, I better do it now. But there haven't been that many. But she, I adored her, she adored me. It was a pretty amazingly lovely relationship we had, even though I was probably a nightmare when I was young and we fought a lot. My sisters, who are probably watching this, will probably have an alternative reality, which I'd be very interested in. Anyway, she died on the 19th of December 2017, and we had her funeral on the 28th of December, which was my father's birthday, and it was all rather beautiful, but it's a pretty intense time of year, and there is a reference to the longest, shortest days, and it's, there's no daylight, and there's Christmas and all the rest of it. Signs. In those very early days afterwards, the signs were urgent and clear. She was with us, still here. In the washing up bowl, a best plate cracked in two in my hands. In the garage, returning the big pans after our first Christmas without her, over our heads, the light bulb exploded, all glass and darkness. She was putting on a show, we agreed, showing off. But the roses were a different story, for me only. First, the crimson beauty, fresh from her dear friend's garden, the one I set in a vase beside her bed and watched slowly wilt over that longest, shortest week. Petals finally all dropped on my return from the funeral afternoon. My love is like a red, red rose, she'd sing. And so I knew that small furled bud I nearly trod on, exiting the loo in the Sawston service station on the diverted route home to Suffolk, had to be from her. And still it blooms. So, last poem of this half. I don't know about you, but I kind of have a relationship, I feel, with the days of the week. I have a kind of different emotional response to knowing it's, a Monday morning or a Thursday or, Wednesday. And Wednesday's always been an interesting day. It feels like you're halfway. Is it going to be a good one or is it not going to be a good one? And I'd like to dedicate this to the lovely Matt McGinn and Sarah. Poem for Wednesday. Oh, humpback of the week, yardstick of productivity, all to play for, seesaw pivot of possibility. Is your gaze, holding mine for fractionally longer than necessary, a sign of desire or disgust? Will we even make it to the weekend together? Sometimes Wednesday, I wonder why I bother. But then again, it's market day in town. Matt and his fish van are back, fresh from brain surgery, his scalp fuzzy with new growth. And here are plump scallops glistening on their bed of ice. And oh, Wednesday, I think, come on, let's go for it. Let's be lavish and splash out. Thank you.
I'm beginning at the beginning, called Permission to Breathe. It wasn't easy. He was still flying missions then, navigating the Lancaster accurately into the flak, into the foul-mouthed shafts of the searchlights. 15 shaken minutes from the aerodrome through the thin November dawn on his motorbike, and he was home. She was up already with Tim in the scullery, putting the nappies to boil in the bucket. Only one, the only one, he wouldn't be held, stiffened against him, struggled and wailed. It was tiredness, he told himself, tiredness and cold that had set the tick going again in his eyelid. Tilted by the child, she poured him stewed tea, and he took it to bed, warming his hands a little round the thick white china. Later, aware of a murmur in the hall, he guessed she was strapping him in, manoeuvring the pram, and he drifted off as silence settled. At the co-op, she collected the butter ration. At Willis's, pig's liver for their tea. And then she came home the long way round, beside the motionless, cloudy canal, where only a mallard made V's on the water. Tim fell asleep as they reached the gate, and suddenly limp from the broken nights, she flopped down by Dad in the blacked-out room. In that half hour, before Tim whimpered, I began, though I was nothing to them. As they slid apart, one of next door's hens started clucking, and Mum almost tasted new-laid eggs for lunch. She'd asked Betty, but Dad couldn't take his eyes off the barrage pounding up as they came in low for their final drop. So my parents married in the war, and like lots of marriages in the war, it was in haste and wasn't an easy marriage. And this is called Meeting Our Father. It's called. Almost unbearable, having to wait and wait in the terminal building, checking all comers. A year it had been. His job, Mum said. But we knew him at once. His features varnished, and raced to be first at his side and allowed to uncover the budgie. A fearful clatter of wings, looping. Not used to us yet. And though we began teaching him carols on the way home, his cage balanced on our bare knees, we soon went quiet, seeing how silly our hopes had been. And he never spoke, though he'd settle on my head while I did my prep, and lived with us years after Dad had left. So he was a difficult man, my father. He wasn't good at showing his feelings. And this is a poem called The Lawn Mower. Kind of seasonal, isn't it, really? Irreproachable, the racket of the qualcast coming and going in the cool of the evening, every so often running on the spot while he empties the grass box. This is the man we've given up kneeling in the window watching the gate for, so intent on his stripes that he looks straight through our headstands, our new backwards skipping. Though the motor's died, the blades don't stop at once. We keep back, do as we're told, don't touch. It must be overgrown now, the grave. This is So this is a poem for my best friend, really. It's called Fishing for Mackerel. On all that wide water, he and I dispersed along flight paths of birds flocking across the unfenced fields of sky, and we wheeled freely back to the rocking boat with its wake running straight to Cly and our talk overlapping, interlocking. Till at length I asked, "Where's the rod and reel? And what bait do they take, these mackerel?" And Kurt, startled by my revealed ignorance, drew from the cluttered well of the boat handlines, which he unpeeled, each one barbed at tactical intervals with a dozen steel hooks and vividly coloured feathers, fast food with mackerel appeal. So we dropped our lines down into that nether world looming up underneath our keel and sat back to wait together. And if I was sceptical, if I was never to catch a mackerel, what the hell? If this was fishing, then no endeavour had ever suited me half as well, with half a mind on the hand's light tether, riding with Kurt on the slow sea's swell. Till this spell of content tensed, shattered, at a yank from below, a simultaneous yell of delight from Kurt as the shoal battered by, and we gathered our catch up into the bell of the air, their tails gonging like clappers, immaculate, miraculous mackerel. Not one at a time, but 4 or 5 jangling my line as the shoal without number or interruption still arrived, and while I was fumbling would have passed under our bows and vanished, had not Kurt, alive to my flapping, expertly unencumbered his line and mine and flung them back. And before I'd even half grasped my luck or my thankfulness, more fish snatched at our hooks. And although we must have struck and singled them out, yet we too were their catch, clutched by their bubbling life bursting up. When I think of happiness, I think of that. He died, unfortunately, and this is a dream about him. Not that he wrote poems, but in the dream he'd been giving a reading, launching his latest collection. And once he was finished, with the audience drifting off, he wondered out loud if he'd sold any books. Oh, dear friend, not only no queue, not a single hanger-on to shield us from the view of the stacked table. Precious few dreams bring him back, and yet what did I go and do but pretend not to hear, then, making myself wake up, left him friendless, diminished there. And this is a story he told me. This happened to him. Nowadays, anyone can do it, and you wouldn't have it otherwise, like readily available access to the internet, foreign travel, contraception. You wouldn't, really. Even given last night after supper, when despite you regretting having come without your glasses, undeterred, your host, a good friend and in many ways a most admirable person, pressed on you photo after photo after photo of Australia. The blurred, exhaustive tour, just to give you some idea of the rooms in his son's new flat, the final straw. I'm going to do a poem about Australia in the second half too. So this is a poem of mine called Perm. 279. So this has got a photo in it too. Perm meaning permanent wave, isn't it? Short for that. It wasn't, of course. You grew it out quite soon. Too much of a fiddle with work and two small boys. Maybe you weren't so keen on the look anyway, though I loved all those curls, such flamboyance. No need for the golden 30-something-year-old photo of the three of you on the verge of the faded cornfield picnicking. I haven't forgotten it yet. How much more permanent than that can you get? So there are two boys in that poem, and there are three boys in the next. And the marriage is a bit older. It's called Rain. So much rain, such a cloudburst, and the downpour going on so long that the children won't be fobbed off. They clamour for their boots and cagoules. They jiggle about while we unruck socks struggle with zips. But they're out in it now, arms flung wide, rain tattooing their palms and their tongues, wading in the lake on the gravel, while we're back in the pantry mopping up, bringing buckets and meat tins and cloths to catch the grey drips that keep tracking through the tiles when the wind's in the east. That I said I'd get someone to fix, I'm reminded by that tightness in your lips. So I settle to the job, shift stuff off the shelves, clear the floor, the veg rack, dry pears, wipe the spatter off onions. Then later, when I'm calling them in for lunch, I find them squatting in the drive, our heavy spades flat out beside a land they've drained with canals that connect and are linked to a sea with its shingle beach where space Lego figures stand waiting for a boat to ground. Turning at my voice, they frown, puzzled, as if they'd left me ages before and can't make sense of my English, my obsolete accent. So I looked after the children. It was a lovely thing for me to do. And this is a poem I wrote when my third child went to school. I suddenly thought, good heavens, they've all gone. It's called Registers. Out of the warm primordial cave of our conversations, Jack's gone. No more chit-chat under the blankets pegged over chairs and nipped in drawers. Throughout his first 5 years, an ear always open, at worst ajar, I catch myself still listening out for sounds of him in the sensible house, where nothing stirs but the washing machine which clicks and churns. I'm loosening his arms clasped around my neck, detaching myself from his soft, protracted kiss goodbye. Good boy, diminishing down the long corridors into the huge, unknown assembly hall, each word strange, even his name on Miss Cracknell's tongue. And this is the last one. After this, we can have a drink. So this is about my second son, and it's about that kind of teenage bit. It's called The Light. At mid-morning, seeing the light in his bedroom still on, the blinds down, I swear out loud, earmark him for a piece of my mind. 3 hours it's been on, 3 hours since he left for school, and in all that time, I haven't thought of him once. A tug, and the blind rolls up on itself, amidst the dazzle of days when I ached with love that I'd point his way as he began number work, playtime, packed lunch. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and Naomi. We're going to have an interval now, so go and claim your free drink. And live stream, go and put your kettle on, have a nice biscuit or a glass of wine, and we'll be back in about 15, 20 minutes. Thank you. Hello. Welcome back to the second half. Yes. Yeah. And welcome back to our live streamers, if we could say. Welcome to them. Yes. So now, as you know, Michael is a very keen darts and snooker fan, and he wanted me to do, you know those MCs they've got at snooker and darts now, and they sort of do a big thing for these rather dreary darts and snooker players who come out, they give them like interesting nicknames, stuff like that. So I've done a special, because I always think, actually, if the poetry thing dries up, I could be a like snooker or darts MC, I'm thinking. And it's live streams, who knows what's what? Barry Hearn, the snooker guy, could be watching. So, here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Leiston legend, laureate of the Long Shop, the poetry geezer from Golding's Lane, his poetry lordship, Michael Laskey.
Turn the page. So this is a seasonal poem. A seasonal poem's good, isn't it? So this is about nightingales, which are back. We heard them the other night on Westleton Heath. Lovely, a top quality singer. Nightingales. This is about not hearing the nightingales. It was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. Who wouldn't feel a bit low, biking back into town again, from another vain after-supper ride round our Nightingale woods, where they're 2 or 3 weeks overdue. And though it's worrying what we've done, it's a warm, still evening, perfect for hearing them sing. And being in no hurry to go in, I pedal on past my turning to check if it's true. Our local volunteer, shut up for years against the odds, has reopened. And yes, it's alive, lights, music. And inside this Saturday night, as I swing round the corner, a good crowd of mostly young men in both bars, with more arriving down the side street, one of whom, in reply to my evening, calls out, "Take your berry off, you cunt." This is ignorance. Ignorance. I'll carry this with me each day. How at 20, in a library, I happened on photos I kept going back to pore over, accounts of the camps I read with a terrible thirst I did my best to ignore. This is one of those poems, all these, what's gone wrong, of course, is I haven't put my glasses on. But I've got them, so I will. 309. So this is a difficulty we all have, I'm sure. I gave her £1 because she was standing outside solar between me and the car. Because she was homeless, she said. Because she called me sir. Because she asked me for money, some change. Because it was the least I could do. Because she was young. Because of the cold, the daylight, going, snow forecast, because of her tracksuit bottoms, her grubby fawn anorak, because she was scrawny, her face gaunt and blotchy, because I'd just spent $9.95 on rocket and cherry tomatoes, paper towels and a packet of fat balls, because I'd remembered the food bank too late, because other shoppers were converging on us from their cars and emerging through the sliding doors, because she had to get back to Ipswich and had lost her bus fare, because I didn't believe her, because she'd had to come down to the doctor's. She said she used to live here, because she seemed vaguely familiar, because I felt trapped, too ashamed to look at her anymore. Because I couldn't give her any less, I handed over £1. Here's Mood, another poem set in Leiston. Sometimes it works. A few words get through, can change your mood. Like today, chalked up on the A-board outside Bertie's, haircut while you wait. This is the tightrope wedding. We can't take our eyes off the young couple walking to meet one another on this cable strung between twin towers of the castle, 50 feet up in the air and no net. Arms wide, they're holding out matching aluminium balancing poles that are light but so long they bow slightly. We can see how the slim, dark-haired and suited groom bends his knees as he leans forward, shifting his weight onto the front foot to take his next step. The bride, we assume, must be doing the same, somehow holding sway over her stiff petticoats, the satin and lace. And adjusting to any gust tugging at her train, she comes on steadily, one white shoe showing, its soft sole curved over the rope. They're wired up, they counterbalance each other, but they're not one flesh yet. We bite our lips, can't bear to look, are glad to be distracted by this tubby, game, down-to-earth priest about to climb into the picture up the fire appliances' steep but not impossible ladder. It was a card that my son Tim of the Light, sent to Kay and me on our wedding anniversary once. It was a lovely picture. So we go back to Australia now, and this is. We went to Australia, Kay and I. Kay had a. She took a year off, and we went there. She's a GP, and she worked in Australia for a bit, and then we went around, and Australia was extraordinary. And this is a poem my father turns up in. It's called Near Williamstown, South Australia. As I turn down into this ride between pines, I'm startled to find my father's shadow beside me. The upper body bent forward, his stride more hesitant, stiffer since the sciatica. Walking in the sun together, we raise butterflies, yellow, too flighty to make out their markings. Strange birds call, but the birds won't show. They keep their names to themselves. Straight ahead, though, a tree stump stirs, and through binoculars pricks its ears, turns to stare our way. We stop, spot another one, 3, 4, more grazing. My father's not breathing. Leaning forward, the glasses held steady now, his first kangaroos. And this is my last poem, which is called Posthumous. Make way, old man, as my dad on a good day used to call me. You've had your say.
Oh, you've got to love a pithy poem. Can I just start by thanking the live stream, tech guys, and Afka, and everyone at the Cut for making this just such a bloody marvellous occasion for me. Thank you. I'm really enjoying it. Although I am now going to read a poem about something that I'm exceptionally good at. And the poem's called Worry. It is not helpful to say don't to those who worry about the milk being off, about all those felled trees, about tooth pain and the price of implants, about being mean-spirited or scared. Those who are born worriers carry the arcane weight of past lives, death in childbirth, falling out of favour at court, losing your best horse in battle, a weight born asleep and awake, worry coursing the very marrow. Better by far to say, I know, I know. So I was on BBC Radio Suffolk yesterday, and I had a lovely chat with Louise Holland about Flying Change and tonight's launch and all things poetry. And I came off and I said to Dean, well, that was all very jolly, but nobody listening to BBC Radio Suffolk is going to come to the cut. And who am I sitting next to in the front row but a young guy called Michael from Holland, who heard it on BBC Radio Suffolk and was so taken with my enthusiasm that he's here. I managed to slip a poem in for it, but she was very anxious. She said, "There's no swearing in it, is there? There's no swearing." And that was sort of live on air, and I thought, well, it's a good thing Michael didn't read his Nightingale poem. I didn't swear, and I didn't read this poem either because, well, it would have been much too long. Good at sex. Yeah, I did say that. So there's a lot of questions, really. Are some people naturally better than others? Or is it a question of putting in your 10,000 hours? Does how good you are hinge on who you're having sex with? No man is an island. Or on the sex you're having in your head? How about if you've always had a crush on Dirk Bogarde? The shock of discovering a decade later that he'd have never been interested in you. Without objective proof, how can we trust our own judgment or believe that of others? And might an outcome be skewed by having eaten too much roast chicken followed by plum crumble? Does it matter what little your mother told you to expect or avoid? How you were never sure her GIB, good in bed, about anyone was a compliment? To thine own heart be true was actually all she ever urged. Is it better or worse, depending on whether neither, both, or one of you is drunk? Or maybe it relies on just you being high. If you've had sunshine several days in a row on a deserted Greek island beach with calamari and garlicky tzatziki in the cobbled market square under the Milky Way each evening,
No wires at all. Let me show you real quick. This is my dash cam. No cables anywhere. I can take it right out of the car and it still runs. Why? Because it's 100% wireless. You only have to charge it about once a month. It records in 1080p HD with automatic date and timestamps. It comes with a front camera plus a rear camera, just like I showed you. Fully wireless. 4 cameras in one. And yep, it has night vision too. So whether you're running into the store or leaving your car parked outside overnight, it's still recording everything.
does this make a difference? Qualitatively as well as quantitatively. Try saying that sober. What about early morning making up after a really bad patch? After you've both behaved like shits? or when it's probably the last time the two of you ever will, because even though you still love him, you have to leave? Does it depend on whether you're feeling particularly, tenderly horny towards the body you're having sex with? Could everything come down to how old you are, or how young? Or is it simply best because you're both practicing precisely on that given day on the bed you've both made, because you'll never have done it quite this way before? So this book is dedicated to Dean, and underneath it says Miller, my horse, and Bonnie, our lurcher. And we did have a momentary minutes, seconds, where I jokingly said, and he agreed, it should be Miller, Bonnie, and Dean. But that joke would have worn very thin, after I saw it once, I think. And actually, this book would not exist without Dean, and I'm really grateful. And this is a little poem about our height difference. And also Wayne Dyer, for anyone who doesn't know, is an American writer and a motivational speaker. High heels. It cannot be said I've never had lapses of sanity or taste. The short-lived belief in a me who can stride, not teeter. But if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, says Wayne Dyer. And it is indeed nice for us to be able, occasionally, to kiss without you having to bend down or me stand on tiptoe. So, page 45, the system's working. She used to say, I'd rather be blind than deaf, and I always thought that was the most hideous thing you could say. But as I got older, I wrote this poem. I'd like to be neither. Ears. Like my mother, I would not sacrifice mine for eyes, would not be without the thunderous clatter of the dog, full pelt on uncarpeted stairs, the mare's barely audible but conversational stable knickers. Bach. Long phone calls listening and being heard. Our blackbird and robin at first and last light, or that crow's guttural croak. And from the top of the house, her voice calling down to me, darling. So, 2-poem warning, as they say. Right. It's a short poem, and I think the thing I'm proudest of about it is that it has a title with a bold split infinitive. So apologies to all my English teachers. To not yet say goodbye. Every day, at some point or other, I say hello to my mother, not being alive in the world. If I were to hold one of the shells from the old glass lamp base that used to be beside her bed against my ear, I'm sure I'd still be able to hear the sea. It's just on the tightrope of sentimentality, but hopefully I haven't fallen off. Right, and this is a kind of prayer and gratitude, and poems are about love and death, aren't they? So, yeah, thank you everyone for being here. I just can't believe the number of friends and people I love in this part of the world have joined me for this. Thank you. And the biggest thanks to Michael for publishing me and editing it into a really good book, I think. And yes, last poem. And thank you to the live streamers, because it's just lovely to know that you're sort of out there listening to this. And I can't name check you all because I don't know everyone. But, yeah. Let the deaths of our beloveds, the two and the four-legged, be timely and with little or no agony. I've seen it done, the mare head in a bucket of oats. My grandfather sitting down to dinner, feeling a bit queer. My father in his wing-backed chair, sporting life on his lap, missing the afternoon racing. My mother, at 91, still in her own bed, face composed in sleep. May they be timely too, the deaths of your beloveds. Thank you very much.